Garrett's brutal honesty after the loss to the Titans didn't just spotlight tactical failures. It hinted at something deeper. The way he detailed the team's blind obsession with pass rushing, even as Tennessee exploited the run, was more than criticism. It was a warning. It sounded like a player who no longer trusts the people making decisions. The defense wasn't just beaten, it was led into a trap by its own strategy. Garrett's frustration reads like someone watching a franchise eat itself from the inside.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
That dysfunction has a face, and it's not Sanders or Garrett. It's a leadership group that can't admit when it's wrong. When a rookie quarterback throws 4 touchdowns, looks like a seasoned vet, and still doesn't earn the starting role, the issue isn't performance, it's politics. The phrase "boxes unchecked" isn't just tone deaf, it's code for fear and indecision. Until that culture shifts, no game plan or breakout game will be enough to save the Browns from themselves. This wasn't just a bad Sunday. This was a fully televised breakdown of a team out of sync with its own reality. The Cleveland Browns didn't lose to the Tennessee Titans because they were outmatched. They lost because they were unprepared, inflexible, and unwilling to admit that what they were doing wasn't working. Myles Garrett told us as much. Not through coded language or behind-the-scenes whispers, but directly, publicly, and deliberately. When your defensive captain says the team was licking their chops for the pass, while the opponent ran the ball down your throat, that's not just criticism. That's a full-on exposure of coaching malpractice. Garrett made it clear. The Browns were schemed to play a completely different game than the one that actually unfolded. The staff focused entirely on collapsing the pocket, dialing up pass rush pressure, and left the most basic defensive priority, stopping the run, completely exposed. The Titans didn't need to get cute. They just ran the ball. Repeatedly. Successfully. And the Browns did nothing to stop it. That wasn't a fluke. That wasn't a surprise. That was a failure to adapt in real time. A failure to coach in the moment. And worst of all, it was a failure to protect the players who were out there trying to make it work. The front office wants to talk about process. But Garrett is talking about reality. And the reality is the Browns were outcoached by a team with 1 win, because they were too married to a strategy that didn't fit what was happening on the field. There were no halftime adjustments. No shift in tactics. Just a team doubling down on the wrong plan until the clock ran out and the damage was irreversible. But while the defense was getting embarrassed, the offense showed something else entirely. Shedeur Sanders didn't just put up numbers, he led. Over 350 yards. 4 touchdowns. A 60-yard deep ball that turned heads across the league. And through all of it he stayed composed. Confident. Boys. He looked like the only person on that field who wasn't rattled. So of course the Browns responded to that performance by refusing to name him the starter. Instead we get the now infamous "boxes haven't been checked" quote. A vague, bureaucratic excuse that somehow ignores the fact that Sanders just played one of the most impressive games by a rookie quarterback this season. What boxes could possibly be left to check after that? He executed. He led. He produced. The locker room responded. What are we still waiting for? This is where it becomes painfully clear. The issue isn't Sanders. It's the organization. Leadership is stuck in a cycle of overthinking and underperforming. Too scared to admit that a rookie might be the answer. Too stubborn to pivot off their pre-scripted development timelines. So instead of embracing the breakout, they bury it under platitudes and deflection. And players are seeing it. Garrett's praise for Sanders wasn't random. It wasn't a throwaway comment. He went out of his way to highlight how composed the rookie was, how confident he's becoming, and how much he's stepping into a leadership role. When one of your most respected players talks about a quarterback like that, it means something. That's not just support. That's a signal. A sign that, inside the locker room, the belief in Sanders is already there. So why isn't that belief reflected at the top? LeCharles Bentley said it out loud. Organizational dysfunction is holding Sanders back. And he's not wrong. Because when you have a quarterback playing at that level and the response from leadership is a vague non-answer about evaluations, that's not football logic. That's political logic. The Browns are afraid of being wrong. That's what this all comes down to. They're afraid to admit that maybe the original plan wasn't the best plan. That maybe this rookie is ahead of schedule. That maybe the guy who wasn't supposed to be the guy is exactly what the team needs. So instead of moving forward, they stall. They protect egos. They hide behind phrases like development and process and long-term vision. But all that talk falls apart when players like Sanders step up and perform. There is no vision if you can't recognize what's happening in front of your face. There is no long-term success if you don't reward short-term excellence. And there is no credibility left when your veterans start calling out your strategy and your rookies are outperforming your expectations, and you still do nothing. This isn't just a missed opportunity. It's a pattern. A culture that punishes players for exceeding expectations if it doesn't fit the narrative. That's how you lose a locker room. That's how frustration turns to apathy. And that's how seasons, no matter how promising, fall apart. We've seen this story before. It always starts the same way. Leadership refuses to adjust. Star players grow disillusioned. Rising talent gets caught in the politics. And eventually the whole thing unravels. But what's different this time is that the players aren't staying quiet. Garrett is speaking out. Sanders is producing. Bentley is backing them. The internal belief is there. It's the external support that's missing. The support that needs to come from the very top, from the people who've been tasked with steering this team in the right direction, and are now steering it straight into a wall. This team has the talent. Garrett is a generational defender. Sanders is a quarterback with franchise-caliber potential. And instead of building around them, the Browns are freezing them out with indecision and process-based stalling. At some point, you have to stop protecting the plan and start protecting your players. This isn't hard. You don't need a focus group. You don't need to analyze more tape. The answers are on the field. Garrett is telling you what's wrong. Sanders is showing you what's right. And if leadership still can't see it, then the problem isn't talent, it's vision. They need to act. Not next week. Not when the boxes are checked. No. Name Sanders the starter. Rebuild the defensive approach around fundamentals, not fantasy. Own up to what went wrong against Tennessee and stop pretending like accountability is a dirty word. Because if you don't, you're not just risking a few more losses, you're risking your... Because this isn't just about one game. It's about what happens when leadership refuses to listen to its own team. And once you lose that trust, you don't just lose games. You lose the locker room. You lose the culture. You lose everything. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Is Garrett right to speak out? Should Sanders already be the full-time starter? And how much longer can the Browns keep spinning this before the whole thing implodes? Like the video, share it with someone who's been yelling at the screen just like you, and hit subscribe for more coverage of this absolute organizational circus. Because unless something changes fast, this season might be the beginning of an even bigger disaster. And here's the brutal truth about where the Browns are right now. They're standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down at a fall they've taken too many times before. They've been here. This is familiar territory. A moment where elite talent flashes brilliance, only to be weighed down by decision-makers too cautious to move and too proud to pivot. This isn't about a quarterback controversy or a missed defensive adjustment anymore. This is about the difference between a franchise that wants to win and a franchise that's still scared of what winning might require, especially if it means admitting something or someone they didn't plan for is the key. You don't get Myles Garrett and Shedeur Sanders on the same team, both delivering at elite levels and wasted on indecision. But somehow that's exactly what the Browns are doing. Let's rewind for a second. Tennessee came into that game with one win. They were not lighting up the league. They weren't rolling out a new offensive scheme or hiding some secret weapon. They just lined up, ran the ball, and exposed a defensive unit that had spent the entire week prepping for something else. The Browns, under this coaching staff, decided that getting to the quarterback was the end-all be-all. Run defense? Secondary? Basic assignments? Apparently optional. Myles Garrett knew it. He said it. And it wasn't subtle. Garrett exposed a complete misalignment between preparation and reality. The coaches were calling for pass rush packages while the Titans were hammering the ground game. And when the damage started, there was no adjustment. No accountability. Just more of the same, until it was too late to fix it. And the saddest part is that this wasn't even the worst part of the game. Because as the defense got gashed over and over, something extraordinary was happening on the other side of the ball. Shedeur Sanders, rookie quarterback, took the field and didn't just hold his own. He owned it. Over 350 yards. 4 touchdowns. A 60-yard bomb that should have sparked headlines. Command. Control. Presence. Everything you want from a starting quarterback and then some. He gave them a chance. When everything around him was falling apart, Sanders stayed steady. That alone should have earned him the starting job on the spot. But instead, what did we get? We got management telling us he still hasn't checked all the boxes. What boxes? What could possibly be left to check? Leadership? He has it. Production? Look at the stats. Respect from his teammates? Garrett just endorsed him publicly. Composure under pressure? He's already doing that better than most veterans. So what is it? A box that only exists in some imaginary front office handbook? Or is this just the Browns being afraid? Afraid of change? Afraid of being wrong? Afraid of letting go of a plan that clearly isn't working? That's not development. That's denial. And it's not just frustrating, it's damaging. You can't build a culture of accountability when you refuse to acknowledge what's right in front of you. You can't demand excellence from players while refusing to reward it when it shows up unexpectedly. That kind of inconsistency breeds resentment. It tells the locker room that politics matter more than performance. And it tells your young quarterback that no matter how well he plays, it might never be enough unless it fits the narrative someone already built. That's how you lose not just games, but belief. And that's why Myles Garrett's words carried so much weight. He didn't just call out the game plan. He connected the dots. He let us know that this wasn't about one Sunday, it was about a pattern. A culture of overconfidence in schemes that don't work. A refusal to adapt when it's obvious to everyone watching. A deep disconnect between what's happening in the locker room and what's being decided behind closed doors. When LeCharles Bentley spoke out, he confirmed what Garrett had already started to make clear. This is an organizational issue. And when former players start calling it out, you know the cracks are showing. Bentley didn't hold back. He said outright that Sanders is being held back by bureaucracy. That the obsession with checking boxes has nothing to do with development and everything to do with protecting power. And that's what makes all of this so tragic. Because it's not about talent. It's not about readiness. It's about control. The Browns' leadership would rather stick to a flawed plan than admit a rookie QB they didn't expect to rise this fast is already here. They would rather keep Garrett chasing quarterbacks in an outdated scheme than admit the game plan needs to be scrapped. And they would rather risk losing the locker room than lose control of the narrative. But you don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to talk about culture, leadership, and trust while ignoring your leaders and stalling your most promising players. You don't get to say you want to win and then turn your back on the exact people making it possible. The Browns have a choice to make. A real one. Not a PR statement. Not a vague promise. A decision. Garrett. Back Sanders. Fix the system that failed them. Or double down on the dysfunction and prepare for the consequences. Because that locker room is watching. And they're not going to wait forever. They've seen too many seasons slip away. They've lived through too many false starts. And if leadership can't rise to meet the urgency of the moment, the players are going to stop caring. Or worse, they're going to start leaving. You think Garrett's comments were harsh? That was him being restrained. That was him holding on to hope that someone up top might listen. But if the response is more silence, more deflection, more we'll see, don't be surprised when that tone changes. The Browns don't need more potential. They have it. They need courage. They need someone to look at what Shedeur Sanders did on that field and say, that's our guy. They need someone to look at what Myles Garrett is saying and admit, he's right. They need leadership that reacts to problems with urgency, not spin. Because if they don't, if they keep waiting for boxes to check themselves, they'll waste this window. Just like they've wasted others. Garrett won't always be this patient. Sanders won't always be this bought in. And the rest of the locker room won't sit around while politics smother performance. This is the kind of moment that defines a franchise, not by what the players do but by how the organization responds. The clock is ticking in Cleveland and everyone feels it, especially the players. At this point, you can almost hear the silent frustration pulsing through the locker room. Myles Garrett didn't go off because he's trying to stir up headlines. He went off because he's been here before. He's lived through coaching changes, front office reshuffles, empty slogans, and the same tired cycle of we'll get it fixed. And now, with the Browns once again staring down a self-inflicted spiral, Garrett chose to speak. And it wasn't just about defensive schemes. It was about a system-wide failure that's been boiling under the surface for years. When Garrett pointed out that the defense was licking their chops for the pass, while the Titans ran it down their throat, he didn't just expose one bad game plan. He laid bare an organizational mentality that values theory over execution, preparation over adaptability, and appearance over accountability. That kind of culture is exactly why Shedeur Sanders can throw for 350 yards, put up 4 touchdowns, hit a 60-yard bomb, and still be told he's not ready. Let that sink in. A rookie quarterback delivered one of the best performances the Browns have seen in recent memory, and the official response was to minimize it with vague statements about development and evaluations. Boxes not checked. That's the phrase they keep falling back on. As if checking arbitrary boxes matters more than leading your team during a game where your defense collapsed and your coaching failed. It's insulting. Not just to Sanders but to everyone who watched that game, saw what he did, and knows what it means. It means the Browns found something. Whether or not they were ready for it, it's here. The leadership he showed. The poise under pressure. The production. That's what you dream of in a rookie quarterback. You don't bottle that up. You don't stall it. You run with it. But the Browns won't. Because running with it means admitting the plan has changed. And for this front office, that's the real problem. Not that Sanders isn't ready, but that he wasn't supposed to be. It's the same reason the defense was schemed into irrelevance against the Titans. Because once a decision is made in this building, whether it's a game plan or a quarterback depth chart, it becomes gospel. No matter how loudly the results scream for a change, the people in charge refuse to hear it. This is how you lose a team. Because for as much as the players give on the field, they give something even more valuable off it. Trust. Trust that when they show up, work hard, produce and lead, they'll be rewarded. That their performances will matter more than politics. That their voices will be heard. When that trust breaks, everything else crumbles. And right now, Garrett is sounding the alarm. Bentley is confirming the dysfunction. Sanders is showing he's ready. And leadership is pretending like none of it is happening. What's even more frustrating is how predictable this is. We've seen what happens when teams ignore their locker rooms. When they silence their leaders. When they stall momentum because it doesn't match the timeline they had in mind. You don't just waste seasons, you burn bridges. And once those bridges are gone, you're not rebuilding a roster. You're rebuilding credibility. Do the Browns realize how close they are to that point? Because this isn't just about 1 week. Or 1 game. Or even 1 quarterback controversy. It's about a pattern of dysfunction where the top of the organization keeps insulating itself from reality. Garrett's words weren't harsh. They were necessary. He didn't throw anyone under the bus. He told the truth. And for doing that, he's doing more leadership work than the people getting paid to lead. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders continues to show up, produce and remain professional, even as the organization plays mind games with his role. If that performance wasn't enough to earn the starting job, then what is? Do they need him to win in spite of the defense completely imploding? Because, oh wait, he almost did that too. The truth is, Sanders has already shown he's got it. Not just the arm. Not just the stats. But the presence. The intangible quality that makes teammates follow you. You don't fake that. You don't coach it. You either have it or you don't, and Sanders does. But again, because he wasn't part of the original plan, the Browns' leadership can't let go of their own narrative long enough to embrace what's in front of them. They'll tell you they're protecting him. That they're being cautious. That development takes time. But that's not what's happening here. What's happening is fear. Fear of looking wrong. Fear of empowering a voice they didn't expect to rise this fast. Fear of disrupting the pecking order in a building that values structure over substance. You don't build winning teams by clinging to fear. You build them by recognizing when something special is happening and moving fast to support it. You build them by backing your players, not your politics. You build them by listening when your top veterans speak out and taking action when the locker room is telling you what it needs. Because the locker room is telling them. Through Garrett. Through Bentley. Through the performances they're watching unfold week after week. And the longer the front office ignores it, the more they risk not just losing games, but losing the people who can actually turn this thing around. That's the biggest tragedy here. They already have what they need. A defensive leader playing at a Hall of Fame level. A rookie quarterback who's proving he can command an NFL huddle. A fan base that's desperate for something real. But instead of seizing the moment, the organization is caught up in checking invisible boxes and sticking to broken blueprints. This isn't just disappointing. It's a betrayal of what this team could be. The players have shown they're ready. The only ones who aren't are the ones in charge. So what comes next? If the Browns are serious about turning things around, they have to stop waiting. Stop protecting plans that aren't working. Stop pretending like the locker room doesn't already know what's going on. Start backing your stars. Start listening to what Garrett is saying. Start recognizing that Shedeur Sanders isn't the future, he's the present. Because every day they wait, the gap between the players and the leadership grows. And when that gap gets too wide, it becomes impossible to close. What's wild is that this doesn't even feel like a football issue anymore. It feels like a credibility crisis. The Browns aren't just ignoring a red-hot rookie and brushing off the words of their best player. They're exposing themselves as a franchise that refuses to course correct, even as the ship is clearly veering off a cliff. Think about it. Shedeur Sanders throws for over 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, looks cool under pressure, delivers a highlight reel deep shot, and plays the kind of game that should fast-track him to the permanent starting job. But instead of celebrating that moment and rallying behind the obvious future of the franchise, the organization starts hedging. They downplay. They talk about needing to evaluate further. They talk about boxes. If that sounds familiar, it's because it is. That's exactly how dysfunctional teams talk when they're more concerned with protecting decisions than evolving past them. The Browns have always had a reputation for getting in their own way, but this is next level. This is an organization so wrapped up in its own process that it's missing the reality unfolding on the field. And it's not just about Sanders anymore. It's about the fact that Myles Garrett, your defensive captain, your all-pro force of nature, had to be the one to publicly say what the coaching staff wouldn't. That the game plan was flawed. That they were expecting one thing and got bulldozed by another, and no one adjusted. That's damning. When your leaders have to call out the staff just to spark some awareness, that means the culture's off. It means players are seeing the cracks and getting tired of pretending they're not there. Garrett didn't go off because he enjoys drama. He went off because he's tired of watching winnable games go up in flames due to coaching stubbornness and a lack of flexibility. And that's the real issue here. It's not just that the Browns lost. It's how they lost. It's the fact that Tennessee didn't need to throw a single surprise at them. They ran a basic, straightforward offense and still ran all over a Browns defense that refused to adjust its hyper-focused pass rush scheme. That's not just bad planning. That's arrogance. You don't prepare for one game and then refuse to react when another is happening right in front of you. But that's exactly what the Browns did. And Garrett was the one forced to break the silence because, clearly, nobody else would. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is doing everything right. He's producing. He's leading. He's not even asking for the spotlight, it's just finding him. And still, he's being treated like he's on probation. That's the part that really stinks. This kid is proving week after week that he belongs. That he has command of the offense. That he can handle pressure. That he can perform even when the defense is crumbling. And instead of putting their full weight behind him, the Browns act like he's a risk. Like promoting him would somehow be reckless. No. What's reckless is stalling his development just to preserve the illusion of control. What's reckless is wasting games and talent because you're too afraid to pivot from your original plan. And make no mistake, players notice. They see who's really leading. They know when a teammate is being iced out for reasons that have nothing to do with performance. And if this keeps up, the front office isn't just going to lose momentum. They're going to lose respect. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Was Garrett right to speak up? Is the front office afraid of what Sanders represents? And how long can Cleveland pretend this isn't a full-blown culture problem? Like, share, subscribe, because this is bigger than one game. This is a franchise on the verge of wasting everything. And the players can only carry it for so long.